The city lights were bright, but the mansion on the hill shone brighter. It belonged to Mr. Daniel Hayes, a wealthy man who owned many companies and controlled many people's lives with money. He was successful, powerful, and respected by society. Yet inside his heart he carried an emptiness. Daniel was a single father, and though he provided everything money could buy, he failed to give his son something more important: time, love, and care. Daniel's only son, Ethan, was just 10 years old. Ethan had everything children dreamed of: expensive toys, private tutors, and a big house with a garden larger than most parks. But what Ethan wanted the most was simple: someone who would listen to him, play with him, and teach him with patience. His father was always too busy. Meetings, phone calls, and endless files on his desk kept Daniel away from his child. One evening, after another long day at work, Daniel returned home. His body was tired, but his mind refused to rest. He walked into his private study, poured himself a glass of wine, and looked out of the large window that opened to the backyard. That was when something unusual caught his eye. In the garden, under the fading orange sky, Ethan was not alone. A girl sat beside him on the grass. She looked fragile, wearing clothes too thin for the cold evening. Her hair was messy, her face pale, and her shoes were almost broken. She did not look like someone who belonged in a rich neighborhood or even in the city. Daniel narrowed his eyes. Who was she? How did she enter his property? Security guards were posted at the gate and the walls were high. Yet there she was, sitting calmly beside Ethan, pointing at the dirt with a stick, drawing strange shapes and lines while Ethan listened with wide eyes. At first, Daniel thought she was some runaway street child, but then he noticed something strange. The girl was not telling Ethan stories or asking for food. She was teaching him. Her hand moved quickly, forming patterns in the soil, shapes that looked like stars, circles within circles, and symbols Daniel had never seen. Ethan was fascinated. He asked questions and she answered softly, as if she had all the time in the world. Ethan laughed with joy, his eyes glowing with curiosity. Daniel felt a sharp stab in his chest. He had never seen Ethan so happy, so alive. The boy who often sat alone with his video games now leaned forward with excitement, his little hands copying the shapes she drew. Daniel whispered to himself, "Who is this girl?" Instead of rushing outside, he stood there silently watching. He wanted to know more. The girl's voice was gentle but firm. She explained ideas with simple words, yet her knowledge sounded far beyond her age. She talked about stars, about the way light travels, about numbers that seemed endless but still followed secret rules. Ethan nodded as if he understood everything. Daniel's heart twisted. He had hired the best tutors, yet none had reached Ethan like this strange girl did. She had no books, no pens, no whiteboard, just a stick in the soil. And still she made learning feel like magic. As the minutes passed, Daniel noticed something else. The girl's eyes, they were unusual. They held a depth that felt older than her young face. When she looked at Ethan, it was not the look of a beggar or a stranger. It was the look of someone with a mission, someone carrying wisdom too big for her fragile body. The wind grew colder, and Daniel expected her to shiver. But she did not. She sat calmly, her thin frame almost glowing in the last light of the evening. Ethan giggled at something she said, and Daniel felt a mix of confusion and unease. He asked himself again, why is my son learning from a homeless girl? And how does she know these things? The clock ticked in Daniel's study. He stepped back from the window, his heart racing faster than it should. He could not decide whether to interrupt them, call his guards, or simply continue watching. His businessman's brain told him it was unsafe to let a stranger near his son. But another part of him, a part long silent, whispered that maybe this moment was important. For the first time in years, Daniel felt powerless. He had money but no answers. He had control over men in suits but no control over the mystery unfolding in his own backyard. The girl finally stood up. She dusted her hands, smiled at Ethan, and whispered something Daniel could not hear. Ethan looked sad, as if he did not want her to leave. She touched Ethan's shoulder gently, then began walking toward the far side of the garden. Daniel's eyes followed her until she disappeared into the shadows beyond the wall. His guards did not notice her. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. Ethan stayed on the grass, staring at the shapes she had drawn. Then, with childlike excitement, he shouted toward the empty space, Thank you, Leora. Daniel froze. Leora? So she had a name, but who was she really? And how did a poor girl with no home, no books, and no place in this world know enough to teach his son things even adults could not explain? That night, Daniel could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the glowing look in the girl's eyes and the joy on Ethan's face. Something inside him told him this was only the beginning. The next morning arrived with bright sunlight, but Daniel carried the same restless questions from the night before. He had barely slept. His mind replayed the scene again and again. His son Ethan sitting on the grass, a homeless girl by his side, and the strange symbols she drew in the dirt. Daniel was a man of logic. He believed everything had an answer: numbers, contracts, deals, money. Yet what he had witnessed gave him no clear explanation. How could a ragged child looking hungry and weak know things far beyond the reach of his well-paid tutors? And why did she seem to shine in the fading light like a lantern hidden inside fragile skin? At breakfast, Daniel tried to act normal. Ethan sat across from him, munching on toast, humming softly. For a moment, Daniel considered asking directly about the girl, but something inside him told him to wait, to listen instead of question. He knew children often revealed more when they were not pressured. "Did you finish your homework?" Daniel asked casually. "Yes, Dad," Ethan replied, his voice cheerful. "But yesterday I learned something better." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Better?" Ethan's small hands waved in the air, tracing invisible patterns. "Leora taught me how stars move. She said even the stars are like travelers. They go on journeys across the sky, and they never stop. She showed me how to count in a way that never ends. It's like..." "Numbers are alive," Daniel set his cup down slowly. "Numbers are alive." That was not something a normal child would say, and certainly not something a street girl should know. "Who is this Leora?" Daniel finally asked, his tone calm but sharp. Ethan smiled as if the answer was obvious. "She's my friend. She knows so many things. She doesn't get angry when I make mistakes. She says learning is like breathing. Everyone can do it if they are patient." Daniel's chest tightened. Patient. That was something he had not been with his son. He nodded slowly, pretending not to be disturbed. "And where did you meet her?" Ethan thought for a moment. "She was in the garden. She was just there. Like she belongs here." The words sank into Daniel's mind, like she belongs here. But how could a stranger belong in his guarded mansion? That evening, Daniel returned from work earlier than usual. He pretended to read in his study, but his eyes often wandered toward the garden. And then, as if summoned by his curiosity, she appeared again. The same thin girl, hair untidy, clothes torn, sat beside Ethan. Her stick scratched against the soil once more, but today the drawings were even stranger. Daniel leaned forward, pressing his hands on the glass, trying to understand. This time the patterns looked like maps, but not any maps he knew. Circles inside circles, dots connected with fine lines, paths looping across one another. Ethan watched, fascinated, asking questions Daniel could not hear. The girl's face was calm, serious. Her hands moved with precision as if she was not inventing but remembering. Then Daniel noticed something that froze him in place. The girl lifted her hand and pointed toward the night sky. Ethan followed her finger. And in that moment, Daniel realized the patterns in the soil matched the stars above. His mouth went dry. She was teaching his son the map of the heavens, but how? She had no books, no telescope, no charts. Yet her accuracy was undeniable. She connected the stars with her stick as though she had traveled among them. Daniel's heart beat faster. He should have stepped outside, demanded answers, chased her away. But he did not. Instead, he stood silently, overwhelmed by something between fear and awe. Ethan laughed again, clapping his hands. "She says every star has a story, Dad," he whispered when he came inside later, eyes shining. "She says some of them are gone already, but their light is still traveling to us. Isn't that amazing?" Daniel nodded without speaking. He could not tell his son that his tutor was not a girl at all, but something far stranger. That night, Daniel made a choice. He would follow her. When Leora left the garden, slipping quietly into the darkness, Daniel moved quickly. He put on his coat, told the guards he was going for a walk, and stayed far behind her. The streets were quiet, the lamps flickering. She walked barefoot, her steps light, almost soundless. Finally, she entered an old abandoned building near the industrial district. Broken windows, cracked walls, and silence greeted Daniel as he peered from a distance. He watched her climb into a small corner. where she wrapped herself in a thin blanket and curled up like a child hiding from the world. Daniel waited. For a moment he saw nothing unusual, but then his breath caught in his throat. In the darkness, faint lines appeared across her skin. Not scars, not dirt. They glowed softly, like silver veins of light running through her body. Her face looked peaceful, almost angelic, as the glow spread across her hands, her neck, her temples. Daniel staggered back against the wall, his mind racing. She is not human. She cannot be human, and yet his son trusted her. His son admired her. His son called her friend. Daniel's world of money, logic, and control suddenly felt small, fragile, and meaningless. He had discovered a secret larger than his entire empire. As the glow faded, leaving her in silence, Daniel whispered to himself, "What are you, Leora? And why have you chosen my son?" For days, Daniel carried the secret alone. Each morning he went to work, signed contracts, and shook hands with important men, but his mind was never in the room. His thoughts always drifted back to that girl, Leora, sleeping in ruins, her skin glowing faintly like hidden fire. Daniel was not a man who believed in the supernatural. He believed in profits, in numbers, in what could be touched and measured. Yet every time he closed his eyes, he saw those silver lines across her skin. No tutor, no scientist, no professor he had ever met had that kind of presence, and no homeless child could have such impossible knowledge. Something was different about her. Something not of this world. That evening, Daniel returned home early again. He dismissed his staff and told the guards not to patrol the backyard. He wanted silence. He wanted to see her without interruption. As he expected, Ethan was already in the garden, waiting. And like a shadow answering a call, Leora appeared once more. She moved gracefully, even in her ragged clothes, her bare feet almost floating above the grass. Ethan greeted her with a smile so bright it pierced Daniel's heart. They sat together and Leora began to teach again. But tonight her lessons were not about numbers or stars. She spoke in low tones, tracing patterns that looked like machines. Strange shapes, spirals, and arrows connecting boxes. Ethan tried to copy them, but his small hands struggled to keep up. Daniel leaned forward in his chair by the window, every muscle tense. He recognized none of the symbols, yet something about them felt advanced. Beyond science, beyond technology, he knew. Then Ethan asked, "Leora, where did you learn all this?" Daniel's breath caught. Finally, maybe he would hear the truth, but Leora only smiled. "From far away," she whispered. "A place too far for humans to see." Ethan frowned. "You mean another country?" Leora shook her head. Her eyes lifted to the night sky. "No, much farther. A place among the stars." Daniel's heart stopped. There it was, the answer he both feared and expected. She was not human. She was from somewhere else. Ethan laughed in wonder. "So you're like an astronaut?" Leora chuckled softly. "Something like that." But her smile carried sadness, as if the memory of her home was not joy but pain. Daniel could not hold back any longer. He pushed open the glass door and stepped into the garden. His shoes crunched the gravel, and both Ethan and Leora turned. Ethan's face lit up. "Dad, come join us. Leora is teaching me amazing things." But Leora froze. Her eyes narrowed, her body stiffened. For the first time, Daniel saw fear on her face. She stood quickly, ready to run. "Wait," Daniel said, raising his hands. His voice was steady, calm, though inside his chest his heart thundered. "I don't want to hurt you. I only want answers." Ethan looked between them, confused.
"Dad, it's okay."
"She's my friend." Daniel's gaze met Leora's. "Who are you?" he asked. "What are you?" For a long moment, silence hung heavy in the air. Then Leora lowered her eyes. Her thin shoulders trembled and she whispered, "I should not be here." She turned to leave, but Daniel stepped forward. "Please, at least tell me why you're teaching my son." Her glowing eyes lifted again, and this time Daniel saw something raw. Grief, heavy and endless. "My world is gone," she said softly. "Destroyed by war. I escaped. I thought I could hide here among your kind. But knowledge must not die. Your son, as he listens, he learns. He carries the spark." Ethan's small hand reached for hers. "I told you, Dad, she's not dangerous. She's helping me." Daniel's throat tightened. He wanted to deny it, to protect his son from danger, but the truth was clear. Ethan had grown brighter, sharper, more alive since meeting Leora. She gave him what Daniel's money could not: wonder. Still, fear gnawed at Daniel. If others find out what you are, they will come for you, he said. And for him, Leora's face darkened. I know. They always come. A shiver ran down Daniel's spine. They always come. Who were they? Before he could ask, a sound broke the night. A faint hum in the sky like distant engines. Leora stiffened. Her glowing lines flickered beneath her skin, brighter than before. No, she whispered. Not yet. They cannot be here already. Daniel looked upward but saw only stars. Still, his instincts told him she was not imagining it. Something or someone was searching. Leora grabbed Ethan's hand. I must leave, she said quickly. It is not safe for you. But Ethan clung tighter. Don't go, please. Daniel stepped closer, his voice firm. If you leave now, they might catch you. Stay here. I can protect you. Leora looked at him, surprise flashing in her strange eyes. For a moment, she seemed to weigh his words as though deciding whether a human's promise could be trusted. Finally, she whispered, Then you must hide me well. For if they find me, they will find you, and none of you will be safe. The hum in the sky faded, leaving only silence. But Daniel's world had changed forever. He was no longer just a father protecting his son. He was now a guardian of something greater, something dangerous and miraculous, and deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning. For years, Daniel Hayes had lived with walls of stone around his mansion and walls of pride around his heart. He believed those walls kept him and his son safe. But after meeting Leora, he realized how thin those walls truly were. A single homeless girl had slipped inside his world, and with her came secrets of stars and warnings of danger. Still, despite the fear, Daniel could not deny what he saw. Ethan was alive in ways he had never been before. His son no longer sat silently with his toys. He asked questions. He thought deeply. He laughed even at night when he was supposed to sleep. And all of it was because of Leora. Daniel wrestled with his thoughts. Was she a threat? Or was she a gift? That week he made a choice. Instead of driving her away, he would allow her to stay. But if she stayed, he needed to know more. One evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, Daniel waited for Leora in the garden. She appeared from the shadows, thin and weary, her glowing eyes cautious. You didn't leave, Daniel said softly. I promised your son I would return, she answered. Her voice carried no fear, only truth. Daniel studied her. She looked fragile, as if one strong wind might break her. Yet in her presence he felt something powerful, something ancient. I don't understand you, Daniel admitted. You're not like us. You said your world is gone. Why risk yourself for a child who is not yours? Leora's eyes lifted to the sky. For a moment, Daniel thought he saw endless sorrow in them. Because knowledge must survive. My people believed in passing the flame. If one person learns, then another. The flame of wisdom never dies. Your son, he is open. He is kind. He will carry the flame. Daniel had no reply. His throat tightened and his chest grew heavy with guilt. All his wealth, all his tutors, and yet his son learned more from a starving stranger than from him. Leora turned to leave, but Daniel spoke quickly. Wait, you can't keep sleeping in ruins. If anyone sees you glowing, they'll hunt you. Stay here, in my house. Her eyes widened in shock. Why would you risk this? Daniel's jaw tightened. Because Ethan needs you, and maybe I do too. For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. It was not the smile of a child, but of someone who had seen too much pain. Slowly, she nodded, and so, the bond began. Leora became a hidden part of their lives. By day, she remained out of sight, sleeping in the mansion's unused rooms. By night, she taught Ethan under the stars. She never asked for food, but Daniel ordered his cooks to prepare extra meals. She ate quietly, gratefully, as if every bite reminded her of a world long lost. Ethan grew attached quickly. He followed her like a shadow, copying her symbols, asking endless questions. She answered patiently, never scolding, never rushing. Daniel, too, found himself drawn to her. At first, he only observed from a distance. But one evening, curiosity won. He sat with them in the garden, listening to her stories. Leora spoke of things no human book described. Oceans that glowed with living light, mountains that sang when the wind touched them, skies filled with twin suns. Ethan listened in awe, his eyes wide. Daniel listened too, and for the first time in years, wonder stirred inside him. But beneath the wonder was fear. For every story of beauty, Leora carried one of war and destruction. She spoke of machines that ate planets, of empires that crushed voices, of hunters who never stopped until every spark was gone. Daniel understood then why she was hiding. And why she had warned him, they always come. One night after Ethan had gone inside, Daniel stayed behind with her. The air was cold, but neither moved. "You're teaching him things far beyond his age," Daniel said. "Aren't you afraid he'll tell others?" "Children talk." Leora's eyes glowed faintly. "He will not betray me. He is loyal. Stronger than you think." Daniel let out a breath. "And what about me? Do you trust me?" She looked at him for a long moment. "I trust what I see. A man who has built walls of gold but cannot hide his empty heart. A man who wishes to protect his child even if he doesn't know how. Yes, I trust you for now." Her words cut deep. Daniel had spent years hiding his weaknesses, but somehow this alien girl saw through him as if he were glass. In that silence, a bond formed, not of blood, not of origin, but of shared need. She needed shelter. He needed answers. And Ethan needed both. But the bond did not go unnoticed. One evening, while driving through the city, Daniel overheard news on the radio. Reports of strange lights and unusual signals had reached government ears. Investigators were searching. People whispered of something not human hiding among them. Daniel's grip tightened on the wheel. He thought of Leora glowing in the dark, of her soft voice telling his son secrets of the stars. If the world discovered her, she would be torn away. That night, when he returned home, he found Ethan asleep with notebooks full of drawings, symbols, maps, patterns copied from Leora. The boy's small face glowed with joy even in sleep. Daniel stood there, torn. He was a man who had always chosen profit over people, but now for the first time he faced a choice no money could solve. Would he protect this strange girl who carried the wisdom of the stars, or would he push her away before the hunters came? As he looked at his son, sleeping peacefully with Leora's flame in his hands, Daniel knew the answer. He would protect them both, even if the whole world turned against him. The mansion had never felt so alive. In the quiet corners of Daniel's house, knowledge grew like fire. Ethan filled pages with Leora's strange symbols, drawing stars and machines no tutor had ever taught him. Daniel listened at times, pretending to be busy, but secretly he too learned. About galaxies beyond reach, about histories of war and hope, about a universe much larger than his fortune. Yet peace is fragile. And peace never lasts when secrets shine too brightly. One cold evening, Daniel sat in his office going through reports from his company. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Strange lights in the night sky, witnesses report unknown phenomena. His stomach tightened. He read further. People in the city claim to see unusual flickers of silver near the industrial district, the very place where Leora once hid. Daniel pushed the phone aside, but his thoughts would not rest. He remembered her warning. They always come. The next day, trouble arrived at his gates. 2 black cars pulled up, their engines low and heavy. Men in dark suits stepped out, their faces sharp, their eyes colder than stone. One carried a briefcase, another a scanner-like device. They introduced themselves as government investigators, though they carried no kindness in their tone. "Mr. Hayes," the leader said firmly, "we're following reports of an unusual presence in this district. People claim they've seen lights, heard sounds not of this world. Have you noticed anything strange on your property?" Daniel's jaw tightened. His mansion, his walls, his guards. Suddenly they felt paper-thin. He forced a calm smile. "I run a business, gentlemen. Numbers and contracts are the only strange things I deal with. Nothing more." The leader studied him for a moment. His eyes felt like knives searching for weakness. "If you see anything unusual," he said, "you will inform us immediately for your own safety. And your sons." The threat was clear. When they left, Daniel leaned against the door, his pulse racing. They were close. Too close. That night, Daniel went to Leora's hidden room. She sat quietly on the floor, sketching a pattern in dust with her finger. Ethan had already gone to bed. "They were here," Daniel said, his voice low. "Men looking for you. They know something. They won't stop." Leora lifted her eyes. The silver glow inside them flickered faintly. "I told you. They always come. Then we need to move you. Far away from here," Daniel insisted. "If they search this place, they'll find you. They'll take you. But Leora shook her head. Running will not help. They have machines, scanners, weapons. They will find me wherever I go. The only safety is silence. Hide me well, and perhaps they will turn away. Daniel's hands tightened into fists. He hated how calm she sounded, as though she had accepted capture or worse. But then he looked at her thin frame, her fragile face, and realized she had lived through this before. She had lost her people, her world. She knew the hunters better than he ever could. Ethan, however, knew none of this. The next morning, he ran into Daniel's study, his face pale. Dad, the neighbors were asking me questions. They wanted to know if I've seen a glowing girl. How do they know? Daniel pulled him close, his voice firm. Listen to me, Ethan. From now on, you must tell no one about Leora, not your friends, not your teachers. No one. If they find out, they will take her away. Do you understand? Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. But she's my friend. She's not bad. Why can't people see that? Daniel's chest ached. He wanted to tell Ethan the truth, that the world feared what it could not control. But he simply said, because people destroy what they don't understand. And Leora is something they will never understand. Ethan nodded slowly, wiping his face. But the fire in his small eyes told Daniel something dangerous. Ethan would fight for her no matter what. That night, the danger grew closer. Daniel woke to the sound of dogs barking outside the gates. He looked from his window and saw beams of light sweeping across the trees. Search parties. Cars moved slowly on the road, scanning, listening. He rushed downstairs, finding Leora already awake, her body glowing faintly with unease. They are here, she whispered. Daniel grabbed her arm. Come with me. He led her through hidden hallways into the underground safe room he had built years ago for emergencies. Thick steel doors, reinforced walls, no windows. A place meant to protect wealth. Now it would protect something far more precious. You'll stay here until it's safe, he said. Leora looked at him, her expression unreadable. You would risk your fortune, your life for me. Daniel swallowed hard. Not just for you. For Ethan, he needs you. And maybe, I do too. For the first time, Leora reached out and touched his hand. Her skin was warm, her glow soft. Then we share this danger together, she said. Above them, the sound of engines roared. Men's voices echoed faintly. The hunters were searching, their machines probing the air. Daniel stood by the safe room door, his heart pounding. For the first time in his life, his money meant nothing. His power meant nothing. What mattered now was a promise. One man, one alien, and a boy bound together by trust, hiding from a world that would never forgive them if they were discovered. The danger had arrived. And it would not leave. The mansion was no longer a home. It had become a battlefield of silence and fear. Every corner felt heavy. Every shadow seemed to hold an eye. Outside, the government agents lingered, driving past the gates at odd hours, sometimes parking nearby, watching. Daniel's walls of stone, once symbols of safety, now felt like a cage. Inside, in the hidden safe room, Leora waited quietly. Her silver glow dimmed when she rested, but in moments of tension it returned, bright and sharp like fire under glass. Ethan often sat with her, whispering questions, laughing softly, drawing her symbols in his notebooks. To him, she was not an alien or a fugitive. She was his friend, his teacher, the sister he never had. But Daniel was not a child. He knew the storm was closing in. One night after Ethan had fallen asleep, Daniel stood in the safe room doorway. His face was hard, his mind torn. Leora lifted her eyes and read the conflict in him. You are afraid, she said gently. Daniel nodded once. They're getting closer. They came to my company today. They asked questions about me, about Ethan, about who visits this house. They don't believe my answers anymore. It's only a matter of time before they break through. Leora did not flinch. Then you must decide. Do you stand with me or do you let them take me? The words cut like blades. Daniel had faced 1,000 business choices, gambled fortunes, ruined rivals. But none of those decisions weighed like this. If he betrayed her, the agents would leave him and Ethan alone. His fortune, his reputation, his empire, all safe. But if he kept her secret, he risked everything. His company could be destroyed. His wealth stripped away. Worse, Ethan could be dragged into danger. The father inside him screamed to protect his son. The businessman whispered to protect his empire. And somewhere deeper, a quiet voice, the voice of a man who had once forgotten what it meant to feel, told him to protect her. Later that night, he heard Ethan crying softly in his room. Daniel entered quietly. Ethan was awake, clutching his notebook. "Dad," Ethan whispered. "They're going to take her, aren't they?" Daniel froze. His son's eyes were red, his voice trembling. "I hear the cars. I hear the men outside. They want her. They'll hurt her." Daniel knelt beside him. "Listen to me, Ethan. If it comes to that, I will protect you first, always." But Ethan shook his head fiercely. "No, you don't understand. She saved me. Before her, I was alone. You gave me everything, Dad, but I still felt empty. She made me feel alive. If you let them take her, I'll never forgive you." Daniel's chest ached. His son's words hit harder than any threat from the government. He saw himself reflected in Ethan. Not the businessman, not the provider, but the father who had failed. And Leora had filled that space. For the first time, Daniel truly understood. Leora was not just teaching Ethan, she was saving him. The next evening, the agents returned. This time they did not knock politely. They arrived with trucks, scanners, and dogs. Their leader stepped forward, his voice sharp. "Mr. Hayes, this is your last chance. We know something is here. Hand it over and your son stays safe. Refuse and you will lose everything." Daniel's guards shifted uneasily. Even his staff looked frightened. Daniel stood tall at the gate, his heart pounding. He could feel Ethan watching from the window above, small hands pressed to the glass. He could almost feel Leora's glow pulsing deep beneath the ground. The agent's words echoed. "Hand it over. Or lose everything." Daniel's lips parted. The choice stood before him like a cliff edge. If he spoke now, one word, one command, Leora would be gone. Taken, studied, broken apart by men who saw her as nothing more than a tool. But if he stayed silent, if he defied them, he would invite destruction onto his own life, his fortune, his very name. For a moment, time stopped. Daniel's entire empire balanced on the weight of one decision. Then he thought of Ethan's eyes, the way they had lit up when he learned from Leora, the way he had laughed like never before. He thought of her quiet voice telling him knowledge must survive, even when worlds fall. And Daniel Hayes, the man who had once valued gold above all else, made his choice. He looked the agent in the eye. "There is nothing here for you. Leave my property." The agent's face hardened. His men moved forward, but Daniel raised his hand. "Step 1 foot inside and you'll regret it. I may be a businessman, but I still know how to fight, and I will fight for what's mine." The men hesitated. The leader studied Daniel, then finally motioned them back. But his words left a shadow. "This isn't over, Hayes. We'll be watching." The black cars rolled away, their engines fading into the night. Daniel's body shook with the weight of what he had done. He had chosen. He had defied them. Inside, Ethan rushed into his arms, tears in his eyes. "You saved her," he whispered. Daniel held his son close. "No, Ethan, we saved her, together." Deep in the safe room, Leora listened. For the first time since her world was destroyed, she allowed herself to believe in something fragile but powerful. Trust. But above them, in the dark sky, something moved. Silent, watching, waiting. The true hunters had not yet arrived, and Daniel knew. The hardest choice was still to come. The mansion stood in silence, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence before a storm. Daniel had made his choice. He had defied the agents, lied to their faces, and hidden Leora beneath his home. For now, they were gone. But Daniel knew men like them. They did not forget. They did not forgive. Inside the safe room, Leora sat quietly, her silver glow faint but steady. Ethan leaned against her, sketching patterns with a pencil, his small face calm for the first time in days. Daniel watched them from the doorway, a strange feeling stirring in his chest. For years, money had been his shield, power his comfort. Yet here, in this hidden room, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Family. And that frightened him more than the agents ever could. The days passed slowly. Daniel tightened security, installed new cameras, and ordered his guards to patrol every corner. But none of it eased his mind. At night, when he lay in bed, he often thought of the sky above. Leora had said her people were hunted. If the government did not find her, what if the ones who had destroyed her world did? One evening, after dinner, Daniel asked her the question that had haunted him. "Why my son? Out of all the people in this city, why did you choose him?" Leora's eyes shimmered in the dim light. She placed her thin hand on Ethan's notebook. tracing one of his star maps. Because he listens. Most humans see but do not notice, hear but do not listen. Your son, he listens with his heart. My people believed such souls carry the flame forward. If the hunters come, if I fall, he will remember. Daniel's chest tightened. He had built empires, but his son had been ignored, left lonely. And now this alien girl saw something in Ethan he had almost lost himself. I can't lose him, Daniel whispered. Then protect him, Leora replied softly. Not with money, not with walls, but with truth. Children are stronger when they know the truth. Daniel said nothing, but the words stayed with him. That night the storm arrived. It began with the dogs. They barked wildly at the sky, their howls filling the air. Daniel rushed to his window and froze. Above the mansion, the stars flickered unnaturally. A dark shape slid across the heavens, silent and vast. No helicopter, no jet, something else. Ethan ran into his room. Dad, look. Daniel pulled him close, his eyes locked on the shadow above. It moved slowly, scanning, searching. His stomach turned cold. This was no government. This was something older. Something Leora had feared. He rushed to the safe room. Leora was already standing, her glow brighter, pulsing with alarm. They found me, she whispered. Her voice shook for the first time. Not your men, not your world, mine. Daniel's heart thundered. What do they want? Her glowing eyes met his. Me, always me. But if they see your son with me, they will take him too. They will see the spark. Ethan clung to her arm. No, I won't let them take you. Daniel grabbed his son, pulling him close. Ethan, listen. You have to stay with me. Do you understand? Whatever happens, you stay behind me. But Ethan's small voice trembled. Dad, you promised to protect her too. The words pierced Daniel's heart. He had promised. And now the cost of that promise stood above his house, watching like a hawk. Suddenly, the mansion shook. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the walls. Lights flickered, guards shouted outside. Daniel ran to the monitors. Every camera showed chaos. His men fired their weapons into the sky, but bullets vanished into the darkness. They're here, Leora said, her glow now blazing. She stepped forward, her thin figure radiating light like a star in human form. I must go. If I leave, they may not harm you. No, Ethan cried, clutching her hand. Please don't leave us. Daniel's voice broke. There has to be another way. Leora looked at him, her eyes deep with sorrow. There is always another way. But it comes with sacrifice. What sacrifice? Daniel demanded. She touched Ethan's cheek gently. He is the flame. If they take me, he must carry it. If I stay, you both will be marked forever. The humming outside grew louder, shaking the very ground. Daniel knew time was gone. He stood there, torn between choices more impossible than any he had faced in his life. Give her up and save his family? Or fight against something far greater than himself, risking everything for trust, for knowledge, for hope? His son's tearful eyes looked up at him. Dad, don't let them take her. Daniel turned toward Leora. Her glow lit the room, her face calm despite the fear outside. For a brief moment he saw not an alien, not a fugitive, but a teacher, a protector, perhaps even the family he had never known he needed. He clenched his fists. His decision was made. The mansion shuddered again. Glass shattered upstairs. Alarms wailed. Daniel pulled Leora and Ethan close. If they want you, they'll have to come through me first. And as the hum outside grew into a roar, the lights blazing across the sky, Daniel Hayes, once a man of money, now a man of choice, prepared to face the storm. The door shook. The air split with light, and then silence. The story ended not with peace, but with a question. Would one man's choice be enough to stand against the darkness of the stars?